OK, bienvenue. J'ouvre maintenant.
Welcome. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting 39 of the House of Commons Standing Commission on Official Languages. Today's meeting will take place in hybrid format. Pursuant to Standing Order adopted June 23, 2022, members can participate in person or virtually on Zoom. I don't need to remind you how it works. We're starting to get used to this. Today, we are resuming on Mr. Serre's motion. Monsieur Beaulieu has the floor. He was talking to us about his sub-amendment. Mr. Beaulieu, you have the floor. Mr. Chair, as I said earlier, as we're resuming now, I think we're no longer in camera, correct? Great. So, as I was saying earlier, there are specialized experts on language that published an open letter. They were meant to be witnesses here. This is one of the reasons for which we don't want to cut the debates short. It's also why we reacted to the motion that was moved to limit the study, the clause-by-clause study, and to shorten the time we have to hear from witnesses. As they said in their letter, C13 is one of the 10 longest bills produced by the government. The last revision that took place was in 1988. And it was just continuing on with the basis of the Official Languages Act. So it continued to have a symmetrical approach between Francophone and Acadian communities outside of Quebec and Anglophones inside of Quebec. We were always repeating that we had to protect English in Quebec and French outside of Quebec. Now, that principle is being questioned. So I think it's a more important change. There's also a consensus. They have a consensus that say that the status quo is currently threatening the survival of French and that is violating the rights of Francophone communities outside of Quebec, and I would say even of the Quebec people. We have to be mind the scarecrows and not take any and not pay attention to them. And one of their main claims of Francophones outside of Quebec is
so basically, one of the main orientations is ensuring that the Treasury Council be the sole entity to orient the legislation. So one of the scare tactics, indeed, that we hear here is that the Treasury Board would be unable to coordinate official languages because it is not in charge of delivering this programming. There has never been a request to have the Treasury Board take over managing or delivering this programming. All we're asking is that, everyone support the request made by Francophones outside Quebec that the Treasury Board organize the coordination, the framing, basically, of the application of the legislation, given that it has the power and the money to do so, such that we don't wind up seeing what we saw in the last 50 years, an ineffective set of laws that don't really work, that don't really ensure that services are offered in French outside Quebec, and all this contributed to the Anglicization of Quebec as well. That's what they say. It's not quoting myself. The second scare tactic is having C13 carried as quickly as possible without further delay. Some realism is required, and being aware of historical circumstances is necessary as well. But look, basically, the reform of the 80s, and this is an important point, there were 111 sections on 45 pages, about the same size then as C13, which is 113 pages in over 64 pages. written up in 64 pages. So back in the 80s, it took 17 meetings for the House of Commons to work through this, and they heard witnesses, 34 hours hearing witnesses, and the final study of the bill took 6 meetings, the clause-by-clause consideration. So since June 2022, C-13 has been discussed in only 10 meetings, 18 hours with the witnesses, another 5 meetings, and we were called on to debate government motions, which kept us from hearing more witnesses and moving to clause-by-clause consideration as quickly as we would like. But despite the complexity of C-13, the government tried to close down debate as of the very first meeting of the Official Languages Committee, and then tried that again on the 1st of November 2022, as we all saw, suggesting that the clause-by-clause consideration take no more than 7 hours maximum and be finished by the 1st of December. That's why we oppose this. It's not that we think the defense of French is an irrelevant topic. Far from that. We think we need to take the time required to work correctly and to work well. Consider the government of Quebec, which presented about 30 requests for changes. The Official Languages Commissioner has filed about 40 requests with us. So we need to take the time needed to consider all of these matters correctly. Some say that C-13 needs to be changed. It may take some time to do that. And we should, if you're going to do something, you should do it well. So that's the sense of my amendment. Rather than sticking to dates, the dates suggested in Mr. Serre's motion, by the way, are no longer relevant. We've moved beyond those dates already. Even the changes proposed by my colleague, Mr. Godin, is no longer relevant, given that we're already on the 5th meeting for this. So I'm asking for 4 meetings in which we would hear the ministers of immigration, official languages, Treasury Board, Heritage Canada. And I believe these ministers actually testified during the last time the legislation was changed in 1988. I believe so. It would be important to set aside 2 hours per minister to allow us to really discuss these matters in depth, as well as plan for 4 further meetings to hear the last witnesses, including those who wrote the open letter, Bossé Power, and others. I think all this is of the highest importance. And yes, indeed, I think that during the last, because look, what we're asking for is, isn't excessive. It's nothing unusual, really. It's, heading straight for a solution, just recognizing that this is an in-depth change to the legislation. It's important to work on this in-depth, albeit efficiently. Thank you, Mr. Beaulieu. Mr. Godin, you are next on the list, speaker's list. Mr. Sanson, who was here last week, but now to you. Yes, it's my pleasure to replacing him today. Very happy, even though he's a Liberal, but he's an Acadian, very sensitive to language issues. So it's an honor to speak for him, for Mr. Sanson, my good colleague. Mr. Chair, then, at the outset, I would like to thank the Bloc Québécois for having really worked from my notice of motion distributed on the 1st of November. If you consult that, go back to it. But before I get into that, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask for unanimous consent to make that motion, notice of motion, public. Your notice of motion? Yes, that you received on the 1st of November. I'm so sorry, November 10th. Yes, indeed, the 10th of November. We will suspend for a moment and we'll be right back. Speaking of your notice of motion, yes. Of the 10th of November. Yes, indeed, Mr. Chair. And to ensure that everyone is on board here, allow me to read it. This is the first time we're speaking of it in public. So, notice of motion, Joël Godin, MP, Thursday, November 10th, 2022, that in the context of the study of Bill C-13, an act to amend the Official Languages Act to enact the use of French in federally regulated private businesses act, and to make related amendments to other acts. A. The committee concluded its hearings of evidence after 6 two-hour meetings, with 4 meetings devoted to the appearance of the ministers concerned and their representatives for 2 hours at a time. Namely, first, the Minister of Official Languages. Second, the President of the Treasury Board. Third, the Minister of Canadian Heritage. 1 second, Mr. Godin. Yes, Mr. Drouin. With all the respect to my colleague, I would just like to make sure I'm on board here. I wasn't here last week. So which sub-amendment are we on right now? Because this is a debate of a sub-amendment, and now we're talking about a notice of motion. What's the link between the two? I just want to make sure that we're all respecting the procedures. We're on the sub-amendment of Mr. Beaulieu to the amendment of Mr. Godin, but I thought you were going to go to that. But now you're talking about a notice of motion. Go ahead, Mr. Godin. But, well, indeed, Mr. Chair, what I asked for was unanimous consent while I was speaking about the sub-amendment put forward by my colleague, Mr. Beaulieu, and then I thank the Bloc Québécois for having sort of used my notice of motion of the 10th of November as an inspiration. Then I asked for unanimous consent to read out the notice of motion so that everyone would know what we're talking about. I just want to make sure that we're all well informed and on the same page. So I'm now reading my notice of motion so that everyone will be fully aware about my notice of motion, which is now becoming public, because it is linked to the debate about the sub-amendment to Amendment 1 of Mr. Beaulieu. Yes, it is. Well, all right, then go ahead, but I'll see. Yes, very sorry. I'm not sure which minister I was at. Yes, all right. Second, the President of the Treasury Board. Third, the Minister of Canadian Heritage. And I think that the people across the way have accepted that already. And fourth, the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. And 2 meetings devoted to the appearance of other witnesses, including lawyers from Power Law for 2 hours. That should be Power Juriste. It's a French firm, but that's a mistake I made here by translating it for 2 hours, as well as the Association des Conseils Scolaires des Écoles Publiques de l'Ontario and other witnesses suggested by the members of the committee. And then B, the committee proceed to clause-by-clause consideration of the bill at the following meeting. And 3, amendments to Bill C-13 be submitted to the clerk in both official languages no later than 5 p.m. on the day of the last appearance of witnesses and distributed to the committee members in both official languages at least 48 hours prior to the first meeting devoted to the clause-by-clause consideration. All right, very well, Mr. Godin. Look, I'm not sure what you intend to suggest, but I think what you were trying to do here somehow is linked to the sub-amendment. But, like, it's not at all the same topic. It's as though you're trying to sub-amend a sub-amendment or bring in another topic. I know what you asked. You've told us, but I don't see it. I'm asking the committee to consent unanimously that this notice of motion be rendered public. Yes, well, look, fine, you could do that, but I thought you were trying to link this to the sub-amendment. But what's the link? Well, before I spell that out, and I'll do it, but first I'd like to know whether the committee agrees that this notice of motion be rendered public. You've just read it. You've just read it. It's public. Is there anything left? No, it's all there. I've read it all. Okay, so why are you doing this? What's the purpose here? I want to know if this could be made public. people have heard this, those who are listening to us now, but people who will be looking for this on our website tomorrow need to be able to find it. So, yes, we've said you have consent. Done. Okay, next. Look, I'm insisting, Mr. Chair, because I'm feeling some resistance from the other party. Go ahead, Mr. Drouin. I wasn't here last week. But you can still give your consent. No, I can't give my consent on something that I haven't seen. But it is public. It's been read into the record. I'm sure everyone is smart enough to know that the spirit of what you're saying here is now available. It's up, and that's going to be up on our website because you've just read it out publicly. Okay, good. Fine. We don't want to go back over this, but you've read it. Now I'd like to know what the purpose of that is. What I wish to say, Mr. Chair, what I have been saying is that I'm thanking the Bloc Québécois, given the Bloc Québécois has put forward some amendment in which they mention numbers of meetings, not specific dates, but our colleague Serré speaks of dates. And I'm very uncomfortable discussing a motion that specifies the 17th of November, given that this is the 22nd of November. So his motion is no longer relevant. It's outdated. So I invite my good colleague, I did so last week, and once again I do so, I invite him to withdraw his motion. Then we will continue the debate to get to the issue here, which is how to take care of French in Canada. So that's my request. I make to my colleague, would he like to withdraw his main motion? So I would withdraw my sub-amendment. Mr. Beaulieu's also amendment would be withdrawn, and then we can get to work on a calendar.
Ouais. Pour ne pas, comme je dis, pour ne pas s'y perdre, on va continuer.
All right, so let's continue based on the procedure as it is laid out. We are in a sub-amendment put forward by Mr. Beaulieu. Now we will vote on it. Any further debate on the sub-amendment put forward by Mr. Beaulieu? After that, we'll move on to step 2. Like Mr. Chair, I believe that I have a parliamentary privilege. I have suggested that my colleagues here withdraw their principal motion. I think I deserve an answer. I'm saying that we Conservatives wish to move forward on this. We are willing to work on this, but I'm putting my hand out. Can I put this question to my colleague? Yes, I see you are of goodwill, but we also have to work backwards, so we have a sub-amender. Let's begin with the sub-amendment. We've got an amendment, right, but we can't deal with that until we get through the sub-amendment. So this concerns you, Mr. Beaulieu, so what do you have to say? One final comment, if I may. I would like to specify that, some are suggesting that we're filibustering, that we're slowing down the committee's work, but if there hadn't been, a guillotine motion to force us to move to clause by clause faster than we are able to do before we hear our witnesses, we wouldn't have lost so much time. We wouldn't have lost any of this time. That's not what we're trying to do. And once again, I'd like to reach out to the government. Please vote for my amendment, and then we will already be heading in the right direction, and we'll be near to a solution. I would like to have the next meeting to make further proposals, but right now we need to cut this Gordian knot. It would be much easier if everyone were here in person and we could speak face to face. I was going to suggest that later, but I'd like to really suggest that for our next meeting, everyone be here in person so that we'll really be able to get down to work and speak face to face and get through this impasse. Anyway, meanwhile, I suggest that everyone vote to this sub-amendment. That would already be a good step in the right direction. Yes, Mr. Godin first. Go ahead. No, I'm so sorry. Ms. Ashton, I'm so sorry. Go ahead. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to respect the committee's process. We're waiting for a vote on the sub-amendment suggested by Mr. Beaulieu. I would like to suggest some changes to make to Mr. Godin's amendment to truly recognize that because of this filibustering, we have not been able to stick to the dates that we were hoping to make use of. But given that we are where we are, we need to get through Mr. Beaulieu's amendment. So I would like to, share that, and I'm looking forward to moving forward, using the process that we have to work with. Thank you, Ms. Ashton. You're quite right, Mr. Godin. And then Mr. Serret. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was saying earlier, I think it's really important to work with these meetings. The Bloc Québécois sub-amendment, of course, is largely based on the notice of motion I put forward on November 10th, and they are to be congratulated for that. But I'm ready to vote for this amendment if Mr. Beaulieu corrects his number of sessions, not 8 but 6 2-hour meetings, to truly fall in line with my notice of motion.
À ce moment-là, Monsieur le
So, Mr. Chair, I think this demonstrates that the Conservative Party is acting in good faith. We're wanting to move along. We don't want to delay things. We want to cooperate with all members so that we can deal with this issue as quickly as possible. And I would add this, Mr. Chair. As fast as possible, but I want to refer to an article from Le Devoir this morning. They said what is worth being done is worth being well done. Mr. Serret, you have a reaction? Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Senate has already produced their report. They've already conducted their study. We've lost 5 sessions. Let's follow the process, Mr. Chair, with the amendments. And now there seems to be a Conservative Bloc coalition. They simply submitted amendments on top of amendments. So let's follow the process. Let's vote. We're flexible. We already demonstrated that we were 2 weeks ago. We were ready to accept what Mr. Godin had proposed, and then it continued on for another meeting. We had many stakeholders tell us that we needed to move forward as fast as possible. The FCFA, the AFO said that we needed to move to the clause-by-clause consideration. We've had the white paper since 2019, C32, C13, and it's time to move forward to the clause-by-clause consideration. I really don't understand. Now I'm being told that I have to withdraw my motion without the sub-amendments that have already been tabled. But you know what? I think we should follow the process. We should vote on these amendments. I encourage members around the table today to vote for the sub-amendments, and then we can follow the process. And, we can be very flexible on the dates. We've already said that. But, this is a filibuster. It's been going on for 5 meetings. Okay, great. So if I understand everything I'm hearing from people around the table is that Mr. Beaulieu has moved sub-amendments. Mr. Godin has moved amendments. These people have told us that they are ready, if there is flexibility. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. Beaulieu and Mr. Godin, you are ready to move to a more efficient way of proceeding. Mr. Serret, you said that you're ready to make some changes on the dates. So you're willing to modify your first paragraph for the dates. So if we have unanimous consent, we could snap our fingers and get it done, but we have to agree on the dates. Let's deal with this paragraph by paragraph, starting with the main motion, with the sub-amendments on the main motion. If we get stuck on paragraph number 1 and we agree on the dates, is that something we can do by unanimous consent? Yes. If not, we will go sub-amendment by sub-amendment, amendment, and vote. And time is flying. It's 12:25. So I would leave the floor to Mr. Serret about paragraph 1. What would work for everyone here? Let's talk about the date. Mr. Chair, before we have dates, we have sub-amendments on the table. I don't understand. If we remove the sub-amendments, then we can focus on the motion. But right now, we still have amendments and sub-amendments. Let's follow the process with the sub-amendments. And then once that's done, we can talk about my dates. But what I'm saying here is that if we had unanimous consent on a date, we could just do that and that would be faster. But if there's no unanimous consent, we'll go first to the sub-amendments and we'll deal with them one at a time. Okay? So we're back on the sub-amendments. I don't think we have unanimous consent. So we're going to move sub-amendment by sub-amendment and we'll get through it. That's what we're going to do. Inaudible, the microphone is not on. Well, you know I did it much earlier. I left the floor to Mr. Serré. I don't want to steal the floor from my friend. You know, we don't have a coalition over here. I thought I saw Mr. Beaulieu raise his hand first, but I'll leave the floor to you. Well, you know, Mr. Chair, as an act of good faith, I extended a hand to the opposing party so that we can deal with all of this. Let's scrap all of this and start from scratch. That's what I wanted to do. But from what I am understanding from across the aisle is they don't want to do that, and they want to lose their time. And they're accusing us of wasting 5 meetings, but it's his fault based on the motion that he moved. Let's look at everything that's gone on since then. And you know what? I will not take the blame. I would like us not to accuse us of filibustering because that's not what we're doing. And I would like them to withdraw their statement because we are working for French and protecting bilingualism in Canada. And Mr. Chair, bilingualism is English and French. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is parliamentary obstruction. Indeed, according to the rules, that's what it's called. Mr. Beaulieu, you have the floor. I have 2 things to say. What Monsieur Serré proposed as a compromise avoids the essence of the issue. The main point of disagreement here is about the coalition between the Liberals and NDP. I think, you know, sometimes we agree with Conservatives, but right now it makes sense. They're trying to limit the clause-by-clause consideration of the bill. So if Mr. Serré had proposed to amend this part, it would be very different overall. The second point I'd like to make is, you know, that Mr. Serré has quoted the FCFA and other people who want us to move more quickly, but in Quebec, C13 and the Official Languages Act is only working against Francisization. I think it's important to change this. There was another letter to the editor where La Société Saint-Jean-Baptiste de Montréal, which is the oldest advocacy group. And, you know, I'm responding to what my colleague said earlier. Mr. Beaulieu, I think we all understand. We're going to move on to your sub-amendments. Let's talk about those. Let's just follow the process. Well, I just want to wrap up quickly. Of all of the groups that advocate for French in Quebec, they all agree that C13 doesn't make sense. We can't continue to let the federal government anglicize Quebec. This is a matter of survival for French, and it touches all of Canada. They continue to threaten us and to weaken French in Quebec, and this has a ripple effect throughout Canada. And now, yes, I'm ready. Indeed, we were inspired by Mr. Godet's motion, and that is why I was opening the door in good faith to change things and make things easier moving forward. Mr. Godet, I would like to thank my colleague from the bloc for having for pointing me out as an inspiration. But again, we are opening the door to the party opposite. I'm extending a hand to my colleague to find some time between 6 and 8 meetings. So if we're stuck with 8 meetings or 6, I'm just trying to show to the leading party that I'm willing to sacrifice 2 meetings and have 6 meetings, 4 for the ministers. I appreciate my colleague who's working very hard to protect French in Quebec. I'm working very hard to defend French in Quebec, but also outside of Quebec. I have a question about the rules. Do I have the right to amend my sub-amendment and change it for 6 meetings? You can modify your own sub-amendments if there is unanimous consent. Okay, great. So I would agree, if there's unanimous consent, to have 4 meetings dedicated to the ministers and then 2 additional meetings to hear from the last witnesses that we have left. Because indeed, time is flying and we need to get working. So we're on Mr. Beaulieu's sub-amendment. The last sentence here reads as follows. In 4 separate meetings with the ministers and 2 additional meetings to hear from the final witnesses. So the first 4 meetings stay the same, and then we go from 4 to 2 meetings to hear from witnesses. Yes, Ms. Latanzio. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could we get more details about who these last witnesses would be? That way we would know who they would be and we'd all be on the same page. Mr. Beaulieu did not specify it in his sub-amendment, and I would like that clarification, Mr. Chair. Well, at the time, no one has specified who the witnesses are, but I think we have consent to hear. We would like to hear Mr. Powers, Mr. Godin. Well, Mr. Chair, from motion to motion, I'm getting a little confused. One moment. So what I was saying in my motion on the 10th was that we would have 2 meetings that would be dedicated to hearing from other meetings, including lawyers from Powers and from the Ontario French school boards and other witnesses as agreed upon by the committee. So right now we can't be firm about which witnesses will be invited in these 2 meetings because Ms. Latanzio, that was written in my motion, but it's not included in Mr. Beaulieu's sub-amendment. So right now we're focusing on Mr. Sub-amendments that does not specify who the witnesses would be. So now Mr. Beaulieu is trying to modify his amendment, which can only be done with unanimous consent. So we would dedicate 4 meetings to hear from the ministers and then 2 meetings to hear from final witnesses. They're not specified. Do we have unanimous consent to approve Mr. Beaulieu's sub-amendment? Mr. Chair? I would like to say that I consent. Yes, well, I was asking it. Well, I'm answering. No, we don't have unanimous consent. So we're now on to the sub-amendment as written by Mr. Beaulieu. Any other questions on the sub-amendment? So we're moving to a vote. Madam Clerk?
Monsieur Seri.
Non.
Madame Latanzio.
Non.
Madame Kayabaga.
Je vote contre.
Monsieur Iacono.
No.
Monsieur Drouin.
Non.
Monsieur Dalton.
Monsieur Dalton?
Il y a peut-être la misère. Oui.
Vous pouvez baisser votre...
You can bring your microphone down. It's up. And you're muted, Mr. Dalton.
Est-ce que c'est mieux?
Oui.
Oui, OK, je vote pour.
Pour, okay. Monsieur Godin.
Écoutez, Madame la greffière.
Listen, Madam Clerk, I think it's important to do things properly and make the right choice. Unfortunately, I will be supporting Mr. Beaulieu.
Monsieur Généreux.
Oui.
Monsieur Dreeshen. Monsieur Beaulieu. Oui. Et Madame Ashton.
Non.
Donc 6 contre et 5 pour.
6 contre et 5 pour, donc le
So sub-amendment number 1, moved by Mr. Beaulieu, is defeated. Mr. Beaulieu, we had agreed that we will move on to your other sub-amendments one at a time. So now you're on point number 2. So my second sub-amendment amends Mr. Godin's amendment in the following way. So when we talk about the amendments to Bill C-13, be submitted to the clerk in both official languages no later than 5 p.m. on November 17th, which was in the original amendment, and now I'm proposing that it would be November 24th, and that they be distributed to the committee members in both official languages on the 25th at noon. So I would delete the by noon on Friday, and I would add the day following the final witnesses. I think it's difficult to be against this because what it means is that amendments to Bill C-13, whether they come from the Liberals, the Bloc, the Conservatives, or the NDP, will need to be tabled the following day after we hear from the last witnesses. I think that that fits with Part 1 of the sub-amendment. I think it makes a lot of sense. Mr. Godin. Mr. Chair. Honestly, Mr. Chair, for the people who are watching us at home, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. The colleague opposite made me laugh, but it's not because I'm not taking things seriously. You know what? His comment was very funny. So, Mr. Chair, what I'm trying to tell you here is this. So we're working on a sub-amendment that changes the date of the amendment from the 17th. No, I'm not sure. I just want to make sure it's clear for the people who are watching us at home. We're changing the 17th to the 24th, and then we're changing the 24th to the day after hearing from witnesses. But point 1 wasn't accepted. And now we say after we're done, but the main motion includes a date. I added an extension, and then the Bloc proposed a sub-amendment to say that we should go with a number of meetings, which I think is very smart. I don't know where he got that idea, but I think it's extremely intelligent. So now, if we count the meetings, at the end of the last meeting, we'll be able to submit our amendments. Well, you know, Mr. Chair, nothing works anymore. This doesn't make any sense. We can't sort this out. No one can sort this out. So I would like to extend a hand to my colleague opposite, and I say that because he's the Parliamentary Secretary of Official Languages who leads the team on the other side. So I extend a hand to him. He tabled this motion. I think we should throw it all away and start from scratch. We've been talking about this for 5 meetings, and now we have 23 minutes left before we lose another meeting. Yes, of course, we had technical issues this week. We had worse ones last week, and this isn't the fault of any committee member. But if we want things to move forward and protect Francophone rights, Acadian rights, Franco-Ontarian rights, we have to make a decision, and we have to scrap all of this and start from scratch. So I'm extending a hand again, and that is my comment on the second sub-amendment of the amendment of Mr. Godin's amendment that is an amendment to Mr. Serre's motion. This is where we are. Are we clear now? Ms. Ashton, you have the floor. Thank you. I think it's important to mention something else. It's possible to be against the amendments that are being tabled. And I think it's pretty obvious that we're wasting time talking about amendments and not voting on them. I said 15 minutes ago that I have a proposal to change the dates and to have a realistic schedule that matches the calendar we have ahead of us. And it's clear that some members here don't want to move on to this. I think that on my end, I'm against the amendment that is before us right now, and I would like to move to a vote so that we can resolve this big issue, this grand dilemma, and move forward and do the work that needs to be done on the bill. Thank you, Ms. Ashton. Indeed, we have to take it one at a time. This is the only way to move forward. Mr. Godin and then Mr. Beaulieu. You know, Mr. Chair, I share my colleague Ms. Ashton's opinion, who is participating virtually today. She said it. There are some members that are not willing to work together to move forward. And, Mr. Chair, I will not take the blame for this. Again, if we start everything from scratch, we'll be able to be more productive. And who will win? The French. I know we have official languages in Canada, English and French, but the most vulnerable language here is French, and that is what I'd like to do, Mr. Chair. Okay. Well, I would like to ask all members to focus on the sub-amendment that was moved by Mr. Beaulieu. Mr. Beaulieu, you wanted to add something? Yes. Well, if we had maintained the agreement that had been made between the opposition parties, we wouldn't have had all of these problems. So the genesis of this is, listen, Mr. Beaulieu, I'm going to have to start being more strict about this. We're focusing on your sub-amendment. Okay, so let's move forward then. I'm not saying I'm not making any compromises. Mr. Chair, I would like to bring you back to June 13th, 2022. We adopted a motion where we say in point 1, I won't read it, because, again, I'll be accused of having bad faith. I'll read it to you that the committee meet in camera after 20 meetings. We did not list any dates. Mr. Godin, I'm going to have to stop you there. We're on the sub-amendment number 2. Do you have something to say about that sub-amendment?
Juste vous prévenir que...
Just warning you that, Mr. Chair, with all due respect to your powers as a chair, I will indeed wait until the next time round to repeat what I've already said. So any other comments on the sub-amendment put forward by Mr. Beaulieu? None. Very well, then we shall call the vote. Madam Clerk.
Monsieur Seri.
No.
Madame Latanzio.
Non.
Madame Kayabaga.
Non.
Monsieur Iacono.
No.
Monsieur Drouin.
Non plus.
Monsieur Dalton.
Baissez votre micro, Monsieur Dalton.
Oui, oui.
Microphone down, please, Mr. Dalton. Or
Non, Monsieur le Président.
Monsieur Généreux.
Non.
Monsieur Viss. Oh, non, désolé. Monsieur Drishin. Monsieur Beaulieu.
Oui.
Ah oui?
Pas pour dire non à mon propre amendement.
Madame Ashton.
Fais pas peur d'être isolé.
Non.
Défendre le français.
Donc, 10 non et 1 pour.
10 non, 1 pour, donc...
10 no and 1 for. So the sub-amendment is defeated. Mr. Beaulieu, the floor is yours for sub-amendment number 3. Sub-amendment number 3 is at point 4 of Mr. Godin's amendment to the effect that the committee move to clause-by-clause consideration of the bill at the latest Tuesday, 22nd of November. 1 second. This isn't the document I have before me. The third sub-amendment? Yes, I'm at point 4. Yes, the third sub-amendment at paragraph 4 of it, point 4. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Beaulieu. Good, otherwise we'll be accusing you of filibustering. Oh, if so, it's not my fault. It's simply that I'm not up to the task. Because everything can be called filibustering. Even technical issues. Yes, I'm so sorry. I think I pulled the wrong plug a little earlier. But anyhow, so after the final hearing of witnesses, that we move into clause-by-clause consideration at the meeting right after we hear our last witnesses. Mr. Godin, the floor is yours. Mr. Chair. I think that this point of Mr. Beaulieu's sub-amendment is highly relevant. It's truly ties into what we have put forward in our notice of motion that is now read into the public record. I think that this is a very logical way of proceeding. We certainly can't be filing our amendments until we have heard all our witnesses. So if we want to move to clause-by-clause study of the bill, we need to ensure that we've finished with all our witnesses. Then we can move to clause-by-clause consideration. Now, I'm not sure if this is the right time, Mr. Chair, and perhaps you'll be able to call me to order if I'm speaking too long, but could I discuss the matter of our clause-by-clause consideration? Yes, it's certainly mentioned in this sub-amendment. Very good, Mr. Chair. So let me go to my notes or provide my notes to you if necessary, because I have a wonderful team that has provided a good deal of documentation here for me. Here's what I'd like to say. And let me just remind us all of the history of this issue. The Official Languages Committee in 2005, just give me a second. Yes, I'm saving time by finding the right place in my notes. So Thursday, the 20th of October, 2005, the Official Languages Committee, chaired by none but the current Minister of Canadian Heritage, Mr. Pablo Rodriguez, the Honourable Pablo Rodriguez. At that time, there was a discussion underway about the parliamentary rights of committee members to speak, to work with a view to improving a bill. Under discussion then was indeed the clause-by-clause study of the legislation, the proposed legislation, the bill. I won't read you the pages. It would take too long, but I would like to simply say that Mr. Maurice Félacote states it. Let us ask the clerk. Couldn't we restrict speaking time for each members? We're trying to move forward quickly to adopt this bill. And then the clerk, Ms. Susan Baldwin, at the time stated, should the committee wish, it may do so. However, I do not believe that we can limit the number of speaking times per person. The only way to do so is to carry a motion to restrict debate, and that has to take place in the House of Commons. And that's what's happened here. The House of Commons, they must bear the weight of restricting our right to free speech. It is important that members have time to deal in depth, in detail, with everything they wish to, line by line, clause by clause, in the bill. Indeed, this is the only time when the House has the ability to restrict this right. Otherwise, MPs have whatever time they require. And Ms. Baldwin speaks again a little later here. If the entire committee is in agreement, perhaps, but you are not supposed to be restricted. So I think that if we check out today, I don't think that everyone here around the table would like to see our discussions restricted. So a motion to the effect that only 5 minutes is allotted to each member to discuss clause by clause a bill is not in line with the correct procedure. The committee must make its own decision in this matter. So I would say that the chair at that time, Mr. Pablo Rodriguez, who is now Minister of Patrimoine, at that time he did accept that. At least the committee voted for that. So I would say to the chair that this approach is not in line with the regulations, the rules. And if you check with other clerks, you will see, again, this is the clerk at the time speaking, said, we discussed this. And then later she comes back to say the committee can only apply a time limit set up or can do so, and can also set up its own timetable, but they're not the same things. In my opinion, if you restrict discussion to 5 minutes per member going around the table, then you need only multiply that by the number of members and then multiply that by the number of clauses, and even that would be quite restrictive, and it would restrict debate. That said, of course, a bill is sent down to committee to ensure that everyone is fully empowered to discuss it fully. So the committee, being in charge of its own affairs, can, however, impose restrictions, time limits for discussion. That's what one of the members said at the time. But the clerk said, I'm not sure that all committees do that. It might be done, but it might be an unusual precedent. So I think I need to share that because I feel that my parliamentary privilege is being infringed on. I am being forced to respect a very restrictive timetable. And with Mr. Serre's motion, we are trying to discuss dates that are now in the past to make matters even worse. Very good, Mr. Beaulieu. I recognize you. So, given that what Mr. Godin has read, it seems that a prior clerk judged that restricting debate in clause-by-clause consideration was not acceptable. That, yes, the House of Commons might decide to set time limits, but only the House of Commons. Is this true? Well, committees are free to organize their work as they see fit, to organize their motions and debate motions as they wish. It is the committee that will decide. We have motions on the table. We have amendments and then sub-amendments. We are working on this, and the committee shall decide, democratically speaking, based on parliamentary procedure, where Mr. Serre's motion goes from here. Yes, well, I wanted to propose a motion which would establish an order of priority among the amendments. I want to ensure that those put forward by Quebec have priority. And I was told that, no, this is not acceptable. This is not in the rules. So here's my second question. Is it in the rules to have a committee restrict debate during a clause-by-clause consideration, as Mr. Serre's motion is attempting to do? That's my question. Two matters. Now, first, in the amendment you wish to put forward, the part of it is acceptable given that it deals with the changes proposed by Mr. Godin. The other part of what you're proposing has no link whatsoever to that. Well, what I wanted to do with that in my motion was to have it said that in clause-by-clause consideration, priority be given to the amendments put forward by the government of Quebec about Acadian Francophone communities as well, but the government of Quebec was in there in my priority list. And I was told that, no, the committee is not allowed to change the order of clauses in a clause-by-clause consideration. It must be based, the order must be based on how the clauses are laid out in the bill that we're studying. Yes, indeed, the changes you wish to have accepted do not relate to anything in the amendment. So, look, it's just not irreceivable, it's not acceptable, given that on that basis only. Oh, I thought it was because Mr. Serre's motion is trying to restrict discussion during clause-by-clause consideration. So I said that, well, yes, but in such clause-by-clause consideration, we need to give priority to the amendments put forward by Quebec. So it is related to the main motion. Okay, I'll check. I'll get back to you again. But your second question, Mr. Serre's motion. Look, what I've understood from what Mr. Godin read out is that the clerk, that prior clerk, stated that one cannot restrict, unless I've misunderstood, of course, in which case you can correct me, that one cannot restrict clause-by-clause studies via a motion adopted by the committee. It can only, that can only take place when that request comes down from the House of Commons and is duly voted in the House of Commons. All right. Let me repeat as best I can what I've understood from this exchange. The committee is free to adopt any motion it wishes, having debated such a motion in the committee. Mr. Serre's motion, and our clerk has checked this, nothing in that motion is contrary to our rules of procedure. Therefore, we must debate it. So we've got our sub-amendments. We've got Mr. Godin's amendments, and then you have your sub-amendments, and that's where we are. So we're working backwards. We're starting with the sub-amendments. When we will have finished with yours, then we'll move to Mr. Godin's amendments. Then we'll get back to the main motion, which we shall debate. It might be changed. It might be rejected. It might be carried. That's up to the committee. That's how we proceed in this Parliament. Okay, if I understand, you're saying that a committee's motion, or a committee can, by motion, restrict debate time in a clause-by-clause consideration, if the committee so chooses. Okay. And, of course, that's voted on. We can do what we want. So we could set specific time limits on clause-by-clause consideration. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Yes. Rule 71(1) prevents us from doing it in that way, yes. When it comes to clause-by-clause consideration, yes. We can't do that. So we can't restrict clause-by-clause consideration. Or we can't. You mean the time? Yes, the time. And in this case, we have like a deadline. Yes, indeed. Mr. Godin, Mr. Chair, based on what I read, that account of debate in the committee in 2005, is it necessary to have unanimous committee consent to allow us to be restricted? A time limit on debate. When it comes to the clause-by-clause consideration stage, if the Mr. Serre's motion is acceptable, so all the parts of them are relevant, can be debated, even though they may be obsolete, at least for the dates. But this is a parliamentary committee, and we will vote on it. And the whole can be voted on, and we shall vote on them. Mr. Chair, two matters. My first question, must the committee be unanimous in any decision to restrict debate in a clause-by-clause consideration? No. I would like to inform the House, or rather the committee, that the entire process, Mr. Serre's 5 points, my 4 points in my amendment, and Mr. Beaulieu's last point here, I officially announce on the 22nd of November 2022 that they will all be turned down. We'll move into a new debate entirely, such that we are really wasting our time, Mr. Chair. That's all I want to underscore, and I've been saying this from the very outset. I hope that I've been well understood. And if I haven't been well understood, let me put this even more succinctly. We are losing our time. And, you know, French is losing out. Therefore, let us vote on the amendment. No problem. And then we'll just work backwards, and we'll continue losing our time. 6 meetings. 6, 6 entire meetings lost, nothing moving. And this is due to Mr. Serre's motion. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? I see nothing on the screen, nothing here. So we shall vote on sub-amendment number 3. I call the vote. Madam Clerk.
No.
Madame Latanzio? Non. Elle est en sourdine, je crois. Madame Latanzio, vous êtes en sourdine, je crois.
Ms. Latanzio, you're on mute. Sorry.
Madame Kayabaga? Non. Monsieur Iacono?
No.
Monsieur Drouin?
No.
Monsieur Dalton?
Oui.
Monsieur Godin?
Il faut être cohérent, Madame la greffière, alors je vais voter oui.
Of course, I will fall in with myself, and I will say yes to support the sub-amendment of my colleague.
Monsieur Dreeshen? Yes. Monsieur Beaulieu?
Oui.
Et Madame Ashton?
Non.
Donc, 5 pour et 6.
5 for and 5 against, 6 against, sorry. So, defeated. Let us go back to Mr. Godin's amendments. As we have with Mr. Beaulieu, we will move point by point to stay on track. Mr. Godin, you're at your first paragraph, correct? So the Minister of Official Languages, the President of the Treasury Board, the Minister of Canadian Heritage, the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, as well as the representatives be called to appear 2 hours each per minister at the latest the 24th of November 2022. Mr. Chair, again, looking back, this is an unrealistic amendment. But given that we intend to focus on procedure rather than moving to unanimous consent to move faster, what's most unfortunate, Mr. Chair, is that amendment point 1 of my amendment, rather, there's 4 ministers being mentioned here, and we're begging for 2 hours per minister. Allow me to remind you, Chair, that the bill, hang on, as I said, we would go back in time once again. We would S3, that's what was being debated then. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't the information. Let me move to C-72, Bill C-72. Mr. Chair, C-72, ministers came to testify during the period when witnesses were heard and were also called in during the clause-by-clause consideration. If we look at the number of hours, let's use numbers of hours that ministers were heard for. 11 hours. And now we're on our knees begging to hear 4 ministers for a total of 8 hours. I'd like to remind you, Mr. Chair, that if you refer to the article put out by my colleagues Larocque, Power, and Bossé, they have said that this bill, C-13, is one of the thickest, biggest, heaviest bills in the entire history of the Government of Canada. So please, let's be serious. Let's ensure that we can move forward as quickly as possible to hear these ministers so that we can finally go ahead and put some teeth in this bill.
Merci, Monsieur Godin.
Thank you, Mr. Godin. Ms. Ashton. Yes, hello. I would like to propose a sub-amendment to Mr. Godin's amendment. But before I do that, are we going to be extending this sitting? Maybe I missed a discussion on this. Well, I just saw that it is 1:01. I have a maximum of 15 minutes left, but if we continue, we need unanimous consent. We can do it for 15 minutes. Is it possible? No? Because of the lack of collaboration from my colleagues opposite, I say no. Ms. Ashton, don't forget your amendment because we can't move on, so we're going to adjourn, and when we resume next week or next meeting, we will resume the debate. Meeting adjourned.